Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings and salutations, hempsters. This is your hempreneurial host. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. It's Hemp Aware Radio, and we're here to empower your hemisphere because it's important. On this show, we put emphasis on what's most important to you and what issues we can solve with regard to hemp and what challenges we can help overcome with this amazing cannabis plant. It's February 16th, 2017. As we're broadcasting the show, you may be listening to a recorded version. And either way, thank you so much for your attention and your time. Your time is certainly one of the most valuable resources, and I sincerely appreciate you investing it in raising your awareness about the essential benefits of cannabis hemp. Hemp Aware is committed to creating a paradigm-shifting consciousness around the world. We're here to inspire, educate, motivate, and uplift you to utilize cannabis for clothing, food, energy applications, healing, and ultimately building a healthy home, environment, companies, and economies. Just imagine if our basic needs are met for food, shelter, and clothing. Can you imagine the amazing things that we can do with this life? So on this episode, we have a very special guest, a colleague and friend of mine, DJ Nikki with the Cannabinoids. And before we get hempspirational on you, I just want to remind you that you can listen to the past episodes, including to today's show, by visiting the iTunes podcast library and just search the word Hemp Aware, all one word, or you can tune in at hempaware.com/radio. Also, if you have any problems that you're dealing with in the hemp industry that you want help with, we're here to help you. We're here to cover topics that are most important to you, so feel free to send us an email at support@hempaware.com. And so once again, for the second time, I'm honored to have DJ's presence. DJ has done a fabulous job of spearheading the launch of the Cannabinoids.org. He's an amazing writer, a content creator, a researcher, a videographer, video graphics editor. He's an amazing overall guy. I'm really excited to be working with him. And so without further ado, welcome aboard, DJ. Thanks so much for being on to today's show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, Tyler.
Yeah. So
we have
before we yes.
I was going to say, we got a lot to cover today. There's so much exciting things happening.
Most certainly. And we have a little extra time on today's show, about 45 minutes I've allotted, so we can get a little bit deeper than usual. Usually our shows are about 30 minutes, so let's get right into it. You were on the show once before, so our listeners may have an idea of who you are and your background. But for those that might be listening to the show for the first time or listening to you for the first time, give us a little background history and how you were introduced to cannabis, kind of your background history, and introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay, my name is DJ Nikki. I've been working in the film industry, actually, for Hollywood since I was about 17 years old, so about almost 20 years now. I've been an animator for Disney, an animator for Fox Studios, and started my own film company a couple of years ago, making my own live-action films and directing. And then I got introduced to cannabis, as I told you, in about 2012. I grew up viewing cannabis as evil and bad, the devil's lettuce. But then a friend took me to a convention in London called Breaking Convention, where I met with researchers like Dr. David Nutt and Amanda Fielding and so many other brilliant PhDs and doctors and psychologists, and they assured me that this was not a dangerous drug, but in fact it was a medicine, and that gave me enough confidence to try it in a therapeutic setting with some sort of amateur psychotherapy at the same time, and it completely changed my life. So after that, I could not view this plant as something evil, and the more I looked into the actual industrial side of the plant, the more I was convinced that this is actually a miracle plant. So that, combined with how it personally changed my life, made me really take this seriously. And so late last year, actually shortly after I just got married, my wife and I decided to dedicate our lives to spreading accurate information about the cannabis plant. And that's how we started the Cannapedia.
Wow, how inspiring. So you really dove into this full force, both feet. You felt like this was the biggest way you could make a change on the planet and shift people's awareness and make the most contribution with your short time here on Earth. We're only here for such a short glimpse of time. I know 100 years or 80 years might seem like a long time, but from what I've heard, it goes by extremely quickly. So I'm so honored and privileged to have someone such as yourself who is so involved in video production and Hollywood to be able to come to the cannabis industry and provide your amazing resources and skills. So let's talk a little bit. I know we're going to get into the Cannapedia. Today's show's Together We Can Change the World with Cannabis Hemp. So I know we're going to be covering some crucial topics. But before we do, what are some of the problems we will continue to face as society, as humanity, if we don't accept cannabis as one of the most vital resources to life, as far as food, clothing, economy, medicine, and all the rest? What are some of the biggest challenges you think we're facing today?
Well, of course, everyone knows that we're facing climate change, and a lot of that is due to, the destruction of ancient forests that release monoterpenes into the atmosphere, which protect us from the sun's UV rays. And when those are depleted, more of the UV rays get through, so the Earth actually gets hotter, in addition to the CO2 blanket, which traps the heat in there. It acts like a blanket on the Earth, so the heat that does get in doesn't get out as effectively. And what most people don't realize is that the oceans are also absorbing a lot of that CO2. And so now you're getting corals bleaching. You're getting all kinds of problems with that. And that's just climate change. But then we also have soil erosion from deforestation. They clear acres and acres of trees just to make paper, which is extremely inefficient. We have soil destruction from over-farming, where people are doing monocultures on one piece of land, and it just depletes the soil completely. Then they pump it full of chemical fertilizers, which you have runoff into rivers, lakes, and oceans. You've got that massive dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. There are dead zones all over the ocean and in freshwater bodies from runoff from not just fertilizers, but also pesticides and herbicides. And then you also have the use of the freshwater for irrigation of farming. So basically, we're looking at total ecological disaster, whereas a plant like cannabis, as crazy as it sounds, I didn't believe all this stuff when I first started researching it. Everything sounded like it was too good to be true, but the more I looked into it, the more true it was. Like, for instance, hemp actually makes a much better quality paper than wood. And in fact, before the 1850s, all paper came from either papyrus or from hemp because it was so good at that. Mm-hmm. And hemp grows to maturity in less than 4 months, and you can harvest it and make paper from that. And it actually produces twice as much fiber for paper per acre than trees. Whereas trees, you think of a spruce tree, takes 12 years to reach maturity before you can chop it down and turn it into paper. And then that's a huge chemical process. The byproduct from turning wood pulp into paper is the toxic sludge that has to be disposed of, whereas the byproduct from turning hemp into paper, with modern processes that they've developed, the byproduct is fertilizer. So you can produce twice as much per acre in 4 months as opposed to 12 years. And it actually, the hemp plant actually revitalizes and rejuvenates the soil. The roots are very strong roots that go very deep, and they break up soil that might have been compacted and dead, and then just the leaves falling from it, and then the roots, after you harvest, the roots staying in the ground and decomposing naturally fertilize the plants. Farmers are finding that when they use hemp as a rotation crop, they actually get bigger yields the year after hemp has been planted without using any extra fertilizers, just because the hemp itself revitalizes the soil. That's not even getting into cleanup of toxic metals. Hemp is great at absorbing heavy metals in the soil, and they've even found at Chernobyl it's been used to clean up the nuclear radiation, and they're looking at using it in Fukushima. So it's not only a plant that can rejuvenate the soils, but it can even clean up our mistakes, where we've spilled toxic chemicals or other heavy metals.
Wow, I mean, you've just covered so many important topics. Seriously, every part of our ecology or our ecosystems will be dramatically benefited by the growth and consumption of cannabis. I mean, you covered our waterways, our air, our soil, our economies. Obviously the old growth trees is something that's near and dear to my heart. And this whole concept of global warming and, the monoterpenes that come off of these old growth trees, and not to mention the terpenes that are released from cannabis itself are contributing to that shield. And I know you and I both learned from Paul von Hartmann, who I'm really excited to have on the show very soon.
Excellent. That'll be a good show.
Yeah, cannabis and climate change. If our listeners want to check out that topic a little bit more and what cannabis can do for global warming or climate change, or how cannabis dramatically contributes to offsetting those negative effects. So, man, obviously we both are in the choir. We're in the church, so to speak, where we believe in cannabis so deeply that we've committed our lives to bringing it to the people and bringing these truths to the forefront. So with that said, I would love to hear your vision, being that, the title of today's show is Together We Can Change the World with Cannabis Hemp. Can you share your vision of the Cannapedia and of bringing hemp, as a bridge to overcome these, corrupt economies that are on the massive scales, that are just destroying our environment and our ecology? How do you see hemp? How do you see the Cannapedia as an organization dramatically changing the way people think about hemp? And what is the Cannapedia's approach to creating this paradigm shift?
Well, I think the only real way to change people is through education. And, of course, coming from a media background in Hollywood, I learned all the tricks to, I guess, for lack of a better word, manipulate people to get them to believe something. The combination of moving images with music and audio is extremely powerful. It really taps people's emotions. And so with the Cannapedia, I'm hoping to, right now we're starting with journalism and articles, which is really good. It gets the intellectuals interested. But we also want to move into more video creation and edutainment so that we can shift public opinion, because right now we've been tricked, and all of this plant in all world governments is illegal, and we can trace that back to basically the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act in the United States, and the same man, Harry J. Anslinger, who started that, who got that passed, he then went on to the United Nations and eventually got the 1971 Single Convention on Narcotics passed, or was it 61, where now every country in the world that wanted to deal with the United States in the United Nations had to make cannabis illegal. And there's a whole lot that led up to that, which I don't want to cover at this point in time. But our task now is to first re-educate the people that cannabis is not an evil plant, that it's actually, quite frankly, a miracle plant. And then once the people believe that, then we can get people moving to help change the laws, because the governments aren't going to change, because right now it's profitable for them to be destroying the planet. They don't see the profit, because the big corporations won't be the ones who profit from cannabis. It will actually be the small farmers, the mom and pop farmers. Just to give you an idea, shortly after the U.S. made cannabis illegal, the 1937 Tax Act didn't actually make it illegal to grow cannabis. It just made it illegal to sell it and to distribute it. It put a $1 tax per ounce on that. And by today's dollars, that's about $136 per ounce. So if you buy a 10-ounce can of corn, there would be a $1,000 tax on that can of corn if it was cannabis. So they basically made it illegal. But then World War II hit, and Japan invaded the Philippines, and the U.S. lost their cheap fiber. And so you can look up a movie called Hemp for Victory that was put out by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, where they started encouraging farmers to grow hemp again, because they realized this is the only crop that can provide everything that we need. The word cannabis, the word canvas comes from the word cannabis, because all canvas and all ropes and all seagoing tackle was made from cannabis. And so the U.S. needed this fiber crop for everything. It also produces fuel, as you know, so many things. So what they found was that when hemp was grown in the United States during World War II, the farmers were able to take 20% of the waste product of their crop, and that was burnt as fuel to power all of their hemp processing mills. And they even had a 50% surplus of energy that was sold back to the power companies by the War Hemp Industries Incorporated, which was the government corporation set up to run this whole operation in, I think, the 1940s. If you look up War Hemp Industries Incorporated, you'll see, I believe they're based in Chicago, Illinois. And they have all the documentation that these farmers burnt 20% of the waste, not of the harvest, 20% of the waste as fuel, and that produced twice as much energy as they needed to power the hemp processing facilities that they then sold back to the energy company. So this crop is just amazing in how much it can produce and what it can give back to not just the farmers, but to the people. Because you have the second strongest fiber known to man. I think it's only Rami is stronger. But cannabis grows in just about any soil on Earth, as you know as well. It grows in, 4 months. It produces twice as much fiber per acre as cotton, uses 0 pesticides or fertilizers if you need it, uses half the water per acre as cotton. It just, to me, it doesn't make sense that we're not growing this everywhere. And, of course, the only reason is the laws. So, it's this kind of information that the Cannapedia hopes to get back out into the public awareness and into the public consciousness. So when laws come up for votes, whether we should legalize hemp, the focus right now is on medical marijuana and also recreational use of marijuana. And that's a very valid aspect of the plant, which we go into in depth in the Cannapedia. But now we're really shifting focus more to the industrial aspect of it, and as a crop that can revitalize the soil and bring money back to the farmers. Because right now it's huge corporations that are profiting from farming. And, of course, the New Deal Farm Acts in the 1930s and 40s paid farmers not to grow crops, which is ridiculous. You had Henry Ford and George Washington Carver working on a branch of science called chemergy, where they would take the surplus crops from farmers and develop plastics and fuels and all kinds of polymers. Everything we do with fossil fuels, from nylon and synthetic fibers to plastics to fuels, everything they developed from plant-based sources, and it was called chemergy. But then the U.S. government stopped subsidizing that. They paid farmers not to grow. Instead of having a surplus, now we had a deficit in order to keep the markets healthy. And then they started subsidizing the fossil fuel industries. So suddenly, hemp-based fuels and methanols produced from crops couldn't compete with the cheapness of fossil fuels and producing that. And hemp-based or plant-based plastics couldn't compete with fossil fuels. I'm sure many people listening have heard of Henry Ford's hemp-powered car. And actually, I think historically it was more called the farm-grown car. And it wasn't just hemp. He used hemp fibers, and I think it was soybean resin to make the body of the car. And it was 1/3 the weight, but 10 times stronger than steel. And it was also run originally on a diesel fuel made from hemp seed oil that he developed with Rudolph Diesel. Now, that didn't succeed for many reasons. The 1937 Tax Act is one of them, because the car wasn't built until 1942. But also, using the hemp seed oil for diesel isn't the most effective use of it, because you can only get about 50 to 100 gallons of fuel if you use the seeds to create diesel. However, if you use the stalks and the fiber, the cellulose in the stalks to produce methanol, you can get 500 to 1,000 gallons of fuel per acre from cannabis. And then you can use the seeds as food, because the seeds themselves, they contain more protein than beef and more omega-3s than salmon. So it's actually a superfood. I know that word gets thrown around a lot these days, but when you look into hemp, it truly is a superfood, because it provides all the nutrition you need in one place. And I believe you're a vegetarian. My wife and I were vegans, and it's actually a complete protein. So it has all the essential amino acids that you need, and it has all the essential fatty acids that you need. So you could eat nothing but cannabis seeds, hemp seeds, and live an extremely healthy and long life. And in fact, next month, we're engaging with a group here in Denver on the Hemp Seed Challenge, where we're eating only cannabis seeds, only hemp seeds for 10 days, while we're monitored by doctors to see what effect it has on our bodies.
That's amazing.
So that's...
Wow. I mean, you really covered a lot of ground in a very short period of time. I'm really thankful for that. And it's, just to kind of reiterate as far as the vision, and where you guys are overcoming these challenges is, number one, the first step is education, really getting this concept out there that cannabis is safe. Not only is it safe, it is possibly the number one miracle plant on the planet for all the reasons that you just covered and more, as far as biofuels, energy, plastics, food. We can build our homes with it, which we haven't even covered, our clothing, and beyond. I mean, there's really no limitation to what we can do with this plant. It's truly a miracle plant. And secondarily, once the Cannapedia feels like there's enough information out there, the second stage is edutainment, really getting it more a broader perspective, or I guess I should say appealing to a broader audience. So doing that through your expertise of video production and training modules, and making it so that more people can get involved and really get educated about the benefits, the uses, and the history of hemp, the history of cannabis. And so right now the Cannapedia is set up, the cannapedia.org, and one of the main aspects of the Cannapedia is this CannaWiki. So just like Wikipedia, the Cannapedia is a place for documenting research and clinical trials and medical studies and doctors' reports and interviews with professionals in the industry who have been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years, and experts sharing their experience on the validity of cannabis as a medicine, as all these other aspects that we created. And that's so exciting. But let's talk a little bit more about the Cannapedia. Obviously, there's the platform, the standard platform, which is articles and blog posts, videos, and then you've got this whole other section that literally looks just like the Wikipedia. Except it's Cannapedia. Yeah, which is really cool. It's very professional. It's organized, streamlined. Let's talk a little bit about the CannaWiki and how people might be able to get involved, or what your approach is with the CannaWiki.
Well, it's run on the same software as Wikipedia, but we do not want to open it up to the public. So with Wikipedia, anyone can go on, log in, and start editing and changing articles. But obviously, cannabis is such a politically charged topic that we don't want to open it up to just anyone. And so we're sending out invitations to experts in each field to come to the Cannapedia to share their research and latest findings, and to have it peer-reviewed by other peers within the cannabis industry. So rather than being peer-reviewed by other researchers who don't know anything about cannabis or might actually have a bias against cannabis, as I know I even used to, we want to have it reviewed by peers who understand the benefits and the value of cannabis. And that's another huge hurdle that we've got to cross, is educating the experts. Because a lot of people think, oh, well, my doctor doesn't know any cannabis as a medicine, so it must not be a good medicine. But what I've been learning more recently is that your doctor, first of all, went to medical school where they don't cover these topics, and then their ongoing education is typically funded and organized by pharmaceutical corporations. And the pharmaceutical companies obviously only want to train the doctors about how to use, prescribe, and monitor their own pharmaceutical drugs. So, of course, your doctor doesn't know much about cannabis unless your doctor has a lot of spare time and researches it on their own, because there's no one out there educating them about that. And so the Cannapedia, we hope to eventually be able to go and run those kind of education programs for doctors, for researchers, and for these people who need to be informed of this but might not have time to look into it on their own. So we might be restructuring it because obviously it's a nonprofit, and it's difficult to survive with that going, but we want to keep it, nonprofit, and want to keep it free for everyone. But that's what we want to do with the CannaWiki side of things, is we want that to be a resource for true in-depth research. So your average reader might not find the CannaWiki so interesting because it's going to be a lot of technical jargon, and it's not going to have bullet points so much. You know, you won't be able to get the Reader's Digest version of it. That's what the more journalistic side of things will be, where we have journalists who read these articles and research papers and write about it in plain language that everyone can understand. And the CannaWiki side is more, the hardcore research. If you want to find actual facts and figures and statistics, that's where you go, is the CannaWiki. And we're slowly filling that in with accurate information. The hardest part is actually teaching myself, teaching yourself about this so that you can write about it accurately. And then the next step is writing that out in a way that is useful to researchers, scientists, doctors, and people in various industries.
Awesome. So that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, what makes the Cannapedia different from other cannabis educational platforms? I know there's magazines out there, there's other blogs, and I don't know that there's too many academies or schools. I know that there's a cannabis academy in Oakland called Oaksterdam, and that is great. I think it teaches people more about how to get into the cannabis business, like if you want to make a business out of it, whereas the Cannapedia is more educational based on people that already have careers and big influencers in different industries, like you mentioned, doctors, lawyers, teachers, people that can make a difference in changing perspectives and changing views and changing people's behaviors, so to speak. But what would you say is the biggest difference between the Cannapedia and other cannabis educational platforms?
I would say the biggest difference is that we're not selling anything, and we're just trying to present accurate information to allow people to make their own decisions. So we try not to bias our reporting or our information. We try not to say that this is the best and only option. We just try and present the facts. Like, for instance, the most political article we wrote is titled, "Yes, Cannabis Does Cure Cancer." And we go through and first explain the fact that, when we say cure, we don't mean it's a magic bullet, a panacea, because cannabis doesn't work every time for every person with every disease, or every form of cancer. But it has cured cancer some of the time for some people. And therefore, we feel confident in saying that cannabis is a cure for cancer. And if you start taking the right type of cannabis and the right dosage of cannabis at the right stage in your cancer, it will go into remission. And we have several people, actually hundreds of people that I've spoken with who have cured their cancer. But in the article, we present the stories of two individuals in particular, Corey Yelland and I can't remember the other lady's name. Unfortunately, the second lady has actually since passed away, and I haven't been able to get accurate information on it because it was recently, but it may have been actually her cancer returned. And what I've been told is that she stopped taking her maintenance dose of cannabis oil, and then she was enrolled into an experimental therapy to treat her cancer, and the doctors told her not to have any cannabis whatsoever, and she ended up passing away, which is very sad. So that shows, it's not a miracle cure, but it is a cure, and there are, I guess, footnotes to that. There are addendums to that. It's not going to just an instant cure. You take it once and you're good for the rest of your life. This is, as Dr. Bob Melamede calls it, a vital nutrient for human health. So it's something that we need to view as something we need to eat on a regular basis. And that gets back to the cannabinoid system within every living creature, from sea squirts right through to humans. We all have endocannabinoid systems, and we all need cannabinoids in our body. So, I hope that explains it. Sorry if I'm going off on tangents here. It's just a lot of information.
No, it's crucial. Yeah, well, I think it's a reflection of the Cannapedia to kind of give people an overview of, look, we're not just covering medical cannabis, and we're not just covering, cannabis as used for a recreational substance. Like, this is a real, legitimate, historical plant that was part of the pharmacopoeia of the United States before the 1930s and before Prohibition that you're really dedicated to the truth. You're dedicated to the facts. You're dedicated to getting historical and accurate information about cannabis out to the people. And so I think it's a great representation and overview because, you're covering a lot of topics, but I think that's exactly the purpose of the Cannapedia, to show a broad spectrum of all the different uses, all the different applications. And when it comes to the medical side, actually get clinical trials and kind of congeal or curate all of these amazing studies, these amazing people that have done the work, they've put in the time, and they've been pushed under the rug, so to speak, or just don't have the resources to get their information out to the people. And I don't know what the statistics are with pharmaceutical drugs or people that go through chemotherapy or radiation, but I'm pretty sure that those success rates are probably a lot less than cannabis usage in terms of apoptosis or cancer cell destruction. Not to mention the horrible side effects of those other applications or drugs. Cannabis is such a safe alternative. And yes,
there's never.
I have nothing.
Sorry. Oh, I was going to say cannabis has never caused a death in recorded history. So, prescription drugs, on average, cause about 20,000 deaths in the United States every year. Tobacco causes about 400,000 deaths within the United States every year. Alcohol, 100,000 deaths.
Wow.
Even caffeine from coffee and energy drinks cause about 2,000 deaths in the U.S. every year. Aspirin, Tylenol cause 500 deaths every year in the United States. Cannabis has never been the cause of a single death. So that just shows the safety of this, not only as a medicine, but as a recreational. You would have to smoke about, 1,200 pounds of cannabis in 15 minutes in order for it to be toxic.
Yeah.
So this is,
right.
You're better off hitting someone over the head with a pile of cannabis if you wanted to kill them with it than having them smoke it.
Yeah.
You simply could not overdose on it. So it's safe in that way. And then when we get to cancer, there's about 3 or 4 different ways that cannabis can attack cancer. As you mentioned, it triggers apoptosis. So it triggers programmed cell death because a lot of cancers are basically cells that have been damaged, and they're basically like zombies. They just don't die, and they reproduce, and they keep producing more cells that have forgotten how to die. And for whatever reason, cannabis, the cannabinoids, can trigger those cells and tell them, no, you're supposed to die, kill yourself, and they go off and die. Then other cells that are damaged and on their way to becoming cancerous cells, they go through a process called autophagy or autophagy, where the cells are told to eat and consume the damaged parts of themselves and regenerate those damaged parts so they heal themselves. So you get cells that are maybe cancerous but not quite malignant, and they're able to repair themselves and become healthy cells. And at the same time, THC has been shown to actually just kill cancer cells in the petri dish while leaving healthy cells, actually protecting healthy cells at the same time. So there's multiple ways that cannabis as an entire plant attacks and fights cancer. I wouldn't even call it so much fighting cancer. What it does is it just gives your body back its ability to restore homeostasis, to restore a natural balance within your body. And by the way, that's not just with cancer. I mean, that's with any age-related illness, Alzheimer's disease, even things like epilepsy, osteoporosis. All these diseases are actually treated by cannabis because if you look up someone like Dr. Bob Melamede, as he says, it is a vital nutrient for human life. So because the current theory, if I can go off on another tangent, the current theory is that because humans co-evolved, or if you believe in creation, they were co-created with cannabis in their diet. And so we actually don't have the genes to produce certain cannabinoids. And certain people who are born with certain genetic disorders, researchers are finding that that's actually an endocannabinoid deficiency. They're born without the ability to produce a certain type of cannabinoid to stimulate a certain system within their body. Just like we didn't know once upon a time that humans needed vitamin C until we started going on long sea voyages, and people started dying of scurvy, which we found was a vitamin C deficiency. Because humans have always been around plants rich in vitamin C, we lack the ability to produce it within our own bodies, and we take it into our diet. And it's looking like cannabinoids are similar, where because we've always been around this, because this plant has been a part of human civilization, it turns out it was actually the first agriculturally cultivated plant in human history. It's recorded in the oldest pharmacopoeia books from ancient China 2,000 years ago, as you mentioned, And so it's been around humans our entire existence, and it's only in the last 100 years that it's been illegal. And it's in those 100 years that we've seen skyrocketing cases of every autoimmune disease known to man, from cancer to diabetes. All of these things can be treated with cannabinoids, and it looks like that is because these diseases are caused by an imbalance in our endocannabinoid system.
It's essentially a deficiency, or just because we have a symbiotic relationship and we're not getting enough cannabinoids from our diet, that these symptoms eventually start showing up, like you said. And generation after generation, over the last 100 years, it's definitely shown up in, even childhood diabetes and childhood cancer, and the epidemics of these horrible conditions that are showing up because of that deficiency. So it is an essential nutrient on every level, not only an essential nutrient for our bodies as far as the seeds, the protein, the essential fatty acids for preventative cause measures, and really nourishing the cells on a cellular level, but getting these high quality minerals, but it's also a medicine for the earth. And I think it was John Trudell who kind of popularized that term, cannabis is medicine for the earth. And we covered it in the beginning part of the show, that by putting cannabis in the soil, we're healing the soil, we're healing the air, we're healing the waterways, we're healing our economies, and we're providing cures for every aspect of life, not just, disease conditions, but disease conditions for the planet. So I'm really excited to be a part of this industry. I've, realized at a very young age that cannabis and hemp were the vehicles for me to ultimately create peace on earth. It's literally a physical manifestation of peace and of love and of harmony and of balance. Yeah, and I know that's why we're working so closely together to get this message out to the people and the truth out to the people, so that we really can create this paradigm shift in consciousness. And
that's what it's all about. That's where it needs to start, is in the hearts and minds of the listeners. That they need to. So anyone listening today, educate yourself properly as much as you can on the true benefits of cannabis. And then once you've educated yourself, then you can go on and spread that information and start educating others, point them to this podcast and radio show, point them to the Cannapedia, point them to the Hemp Aware blog, so that they can start getting accurate information and start breaking down those prejudices that have been bred into us from our culture.
Absolutely. Yeah, even to this day, I find people so confused. And, they say when you get really involved in an industry, or when you develop your expertise in a certain field, you tend to forget that other people don't know what you know. So, it's like if you play the guitar, you just pick up the guitar and you're like, yeah, it's easy. You just go like this and you play a chord, and you can do hammering, and you can do different things on the string, slide, but it's because you've studied it for so long that it becomes so natural. And so sometimes I forget how uneducated people are about cannabis and about hemp. So it is crucial that we have platforms like the Cannapedia.org and the CannaWiki to document these truths and really get it out to the people. So with that said, is there a way, let's say one of our listeners wants to know something in particular about cannabis or hemp in general, is there a place they can submit questions or maybe topic ideas? should they connect with facebook.com /the Cannapedia and join the group, or what would be the best way for them to kind of get involved or maybe request specific information that they think should be out there more?
That's a good question. Yeah, so right now, contacting us through Facebook, Twitter, or Google Plus would be great. So if you just search for the Cannapedia on Facebook, you'll see us there. Or if you go to the website, there's not actually a contact page at the moment, but you can sign up for the free newsletter and also get a free intro guide to cannabinoids, which you prepared as well, which is awesome. Or they could email me directly if they wanted to. I'm just dj.nicky@thecannapedia.org, and that's dj.nicky is Nicke, like Nike, but with a CK, at thecannapedia.org. If you have any direct questions, I do my best to answer as quick as possible, or if they go to the Facebook and send a message directly to the Facebook page, I do my best to answer that within 24 to 48 hours. Especially if it's a medical emergency and you need to get some advice, I do my best to also connect people with other experts who can help them with medical conditions, because I'm not a physician myself, and I don't supply any cannabis products, oils, or anything like that, but I can connect you with people who can help you.
Excellent.
And
wow.
And if I could also just say, on the topic of this conversation today, Together We Can Change the World, I'm also writing an article with the same title. It's taking me a bit longer than I anticipated just because this is such a huge topic, and I want to do it justice. But I'm hoping to have that published before the end of this week. So look for that. And if you're following us on Facebook or Twitter, you'll see when that article gets published.
Awesome. So there you have it, folks. We just have about 2 minutes left. And to kind of recap, go to thecannapedia.org and get your free download of the intro guide to cannabinoids. There's going to be other amazing content coming out in the very near future. As DJ Nicky just mentioned, he's putting out this article, Together We Can Change the World, with cannabis. If you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get updated on the most recent articles and posts. And if we produce any other free content, we're always doing infographics and other amazing resources for you and for your family, your friends, for your doctors, lawyers, etc. So send them to this website, get them excited about the transformations that are coming with hemp. With just 90 seconds left, DJ, what would you say is an optimistic view, like the next 5 years? How do you see the cannabis industry unfolding?
Well, my wife and I just moved back to the U.S. 2 weeks ago, to Denver, and we are working with some people who are trying to change the laws from within the United States and try and make the United States basically the leader of the world again through legalizing and growing industrial cannabis. We're focusing on industrial sides, not medical sides. So I think 5 years from now, everyone's going to have access to cannabis as a food, as a medicine, as a fuel, as a fiber, and as a recreational something to enjoy. So I think the future is bright. For the first time in 10 years, I'm actually optimistic about the future for humanity and even my generation.
Right on. Well, thank you so much again for being on today's show. This is your Hemp-entrepreneurial host, Tyler Hemp with Hemp Aware Radio. Together, we can change the world with cannabis hemp. Give us a call at 805-410-4367. Go to thecannapedia.org, get subscribed, check out some of the articles, share them on your social media platforms, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show. Thank you again so much, DJ. I appreciate your presence.
Thanks for having me, Tyler, and thank you to your listeners for listening to me rant.
All right. Peace out.
Talk soon. Bye.